Good evening. Thanks for joining us on India Business Hour. I'm Shireen Bhan. The big story coming in this evening. India and the UK have sealed a free trade agreement after negotiating for over 3 years. Prime Minister Modi calls the deal ambitious and mutually beneficial, invites British Prime Minister Keir Starmer to visit India. Indian pharma stocks decline after US President Trump signs an executive order to boost domestic production by fast-tracking approvals, tightens the rules for foreign producers, including an increase in fee and more frequent inspections. India proposes zero tariffs on steel, pharma and auto components on a reciprocal basis as trade negotiations with the US continue. Bloomberg reports India offered zero duty up to a certain quantity of imports. US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says China tariffs are not sustainable, hints at substantial progress in the coming weeks, also says he's highly confident of clinching more deals with other trading partners. Nationwide civil defense security drill tomorrow. Such an exercise was last carried out before the Indo-Pak War of 1971. The United Nations Security Council grills Pakistan at a closed-door meeting. Members expressed concern that Pakistan's missile tests and nuclear rhetoric were escalatory, advised them to sort out issues with India bilaterally. Lenders to bankrupt Bhushan Steel likely to file a review petition after the Supreme Court scrapped JSW Steel's acquisition and ordered liquidation. Banking Secretary Nagaraju says the government will finalize a decision soon. Asset declarations of sitting Supreme Court judges made public for the first time. 21 of the 33 sitting judges, including the Chief Justice Khanna and CJI designate Gavai, have declared their assets. Advocate-turned-judge Justice Vishwanathan, with investments worth over 120 crore rupees, the richest. The Apex Court also publishes the entire process of appointments to the High Courts and the Supreme Court on its website. Ather Energy makes a tepid debut on the Dalal Street shares list at a small premium over the IPO price, but end with cuts. Ather's management remains bullish on the near-term growth. Union Bank of India faces the heat for spending 7 crore rupees to buy a book authored by KV Subramanian, the former executive director at the IMF. The government terminated Subramanian's services at the IMF 6 months before his tenure was supposed to end. All India Bank Employees Association called for a probe into Union Bank's expenditure. The government issues fresh, stringent guidelines for satellite internet players like Elon Musk's Starlink to get a license in India. Wants essential functions to be located within India, citing tensions with Pakistan. The Minister of State for Communications says satellite players will have a minuscule role compared to traditional systems. Well, let's go straight to the top story tonight. This is breaking news. India and the UK have successfully sealed a free trade agreement after negotiations that lasted well over 3 years. Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Keir Starmer have described the pact as a historic milestone. Now, the FTA would include a double contribution convention. What is that exactly? Well, it's designed to prevent individuals from being subject to double social security contributions when they work or live in both countries. So essentially, you're not going to have to pay towards social security contributions if you are working in the UK for a limited period of time. Parikshit standing by now to take us through this big development. Parikshit, there's been a lot of back and forth over the last 3 years on getting this deal done. Rishi Sunak was hoping it would have been done in his tenure. It's now happened under Keir Starmer's watch. The Prime Minister, of course, tweeting about this historic milestone. But what does this now mean for India and UK as far as our bilateral relationship is concerned?
Well, this indeed is a historic moment in the relation between the two countries. We have been negotiating an FTA for the last 3.5 years. Let's not forget Boris Johnson, when he was Prime Minister, he came to India and made a statement that we are looking to get a deal done by Diwali. Now, that had become a joke in UK circles, but finally this deal has been done. It got impetus with the visit of Minister Piyush Goyal to the UK. He visited the UK twice in the last few weeks to get this deal done. And now what we're getting to know from sources right now is that 99% of Indian exports will benefit from zero duty. This also opens up export opportunities for labor-intensive sectors such as textiles, marine products, leather, footwear, sports, goods, toys, gems and jewelry, and other sectors such as engineering goods, auto parts, and engines and organic chemicals. We're also going to see an agreement on services as part of the trade agreement. And the initial word that we're getting in is that there will be a boost for trade and services such as financial services, professional services, and in education as well. Stronger strategic alignment with greater mobility for Indian professionals. So we'll have to see what is the arrangement on mobility for business visas, for working professional visas under this. Are we going to get more working visas for Indian professionals? And we are also seeing a 3-year exemption. Now, this is important because the Prime Minister had announced that along with the FTA, we've signed a double contribution convention. Now, this means a 3 years exemption from social security payments for Indian employees working in the UK. So if you're working there for about a temporary period of about 3 years, then you don't have to make social security payments in both countries, and you will be exempted from social security payments in the UK while you're working there. So this was a big ask on the part of the Indian government. Having said that, a couple of things that we'd like to wait and see. What happens to the carbon tax? This was a bit of a sensitive point in negotiations. In fact, the minister had gone on to say that if countries impose a carbon tax on us, then we will retaliate. So what has happened on that? Has India been given a carve-out? That remains to be seen. We're also trying to see what has happened to the bilateral investment treaty. That was also being negotiated because the UK was very clear that all investments coming into India have to be protected, and all businesses will have to get guarantees that in case that there's anything goes wrong, their investments won't get impacted in any sort of a way. So let's see if that bilateral investment treaty has also been signed. But for the moment, net, the big word is 99% Indian exports to benefit from zero duty.
Well, Parikshit, many thanks. And of course, we do await more clarity. The details are sketchy at this point in time. The news has just broken and we will keep coming back to you. But let's go across to Anup Vadhavan, the former Commerce Secretary. He is with us. Mr. Vadhavan, many thanks for joining us. You were in office when the negotiations were being thrashed out. Mr. Vadhavan, to start with, the fact that it's finally done, your first reaction?
Shireen, it's certainly a great achievement. These are very, very challenging negotiations. There was huge ambition on both sides, particularly on the British side for various products which were sensitive for India. So it's a huge achievement. And of course, details are few, but if we are finding that 99% of our exports are going to be covered, that's very good news for our labor-intensive sectors, textiles, leather products, gems and jewelry. So it's a great achievement. And then, of course, those social security contributions for 3 years being, excused is a great achievement. Hopefully that will lead up subsequently to a totalization agreement, which will resolve that issue completely. Services are included significantly. That, again, I think is to India's advantage. Even, to the extent we open our market to British service providers, it involves huge employment opportunities for our professionals. And those can be opportunities which will, be global. So I think because ultimately, British firms in the services sector will have to depend on Indian professionals while providing services in India or anywhere else in the world. So I think it's a great achievement, and there's a lot of, skepticism and concern whether we would be able to overcome certain stumbling blocks, including those carbon taxes. But I'm very delighted to note that the negotiation has concluded successfully. Let's await the details. I'm sure there'll be more good news when those details come.
Yes, Mr. Vadhavan, we are, of course, awaiting the details, but this is, of course, preliminary information that's coming in, courtesy the tweets that the Prime Minister and the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer have put out. Of course, we will have to pore over the fine print, so to speak. But I know you're short on time, Mr. Vadhavan, so before I let you go, as the immediate next steps and as the immediate impact, what do you believe Indian industry stands to gain or stands to benefit? You very comprehensively explained to us the impact and the implications on the services side. But from a manufacturing perspective, especially in the world that we live in today, as this reorganization of global supply chains takes place, what do you see as the immediate impact, the net gain for Indian industry?
Yeah, I think the Indian industry on the manufacturing side will gain even before the services sector, benefits from this agreement. All these duties are going to come down to zero on 99% of our exports. That means a huge, commercial advantage, because UK duties on the average are low, but they have tariff peaks, in textiles and leather products and other products of interest for our industry. So there immediately there'll be a 5 to 10% perhaps even slightly higher advantage our exporters will immediately have, and there'll be a competitive advantage over, rival exporters, whether it is Vietnam or Southeast Asian countries or China. So Indian manufacturing will see the impact very, very quickly. And I think they stand to gain a lot from it.
Well, stand to benefit both on the manufacturing as well as the services side. Mr. Vadavan, we will, of course, check back in with you as the details emerge. But we do appreciate you joining us on the fly with a very quick reaction to something that has been long anticipated, much awaited, and it is now finally done. That is the India-UK Free Trade Agreement. Anand Iyer, Director General Confederation of Indian Alcoholic Beverage Companies, is also with us. Anand, many thanks for joining us. This has been, of course, one of those hot-button issues on the spirit side, so to speak, but the spirit is high today as the FTA has finally gone through. Explain to us what the impact and the implications are going to be.
Yes, while we await further details, we are obviously, disappointed with the drop from 150 to 75. We had recommended to the government that from 150 it should come down to 100 in the first year, and then over a period of 10 years come down to 50%, which is the resting rate. The 50 has been brought down to 40 and 150 has come down to 75. Now, we are not aware of the fact that they have put a minimum import price. Now, if there is no minimum import price, you can be rest assured that there will be a flood of cheaper Scotch imports. As you rightly, just to inform you, as it is over the last 2 months, the Scotch industry in the UK has, I think, come down by over 11% in terms of, their production and exports, basically because of the tariffs imposed in the, in America, in US. So obviously they are looking for business elsewhere, and there are a whole host of cheaper Scotch brands which can make merry. That's one. Number two is that we had also asked for some non-tariff barrier restrictions to be removed. I only hope that in the tough negotiations which our government has done, they have had UK accede to them, because that would then, increase our exports.
What were the specific non-tariff barriers?
What we are asking them is to remove the restrictive definitions on whiskey. We were prepared to call it Indian whiskey and just not whiskey.
Okay.
And we said we want access to UK markets for Indian whiskies.
Right.
Now, if that non-tariff barrier has not happened, then obviously it's a win-win for UK and it's not a win for the Indian industry at all. I heard, Mr. Vadavan say all the good things. Yes, I know other sectors may have benefited, but I think that has been at the altar of the loss of the Indian industry in spirits. The other issue also out here is that there's a similar FTA being now discussed with the EU, as also with the US and with Australia and New Zealand as we speak. Now with 75 and 40 without any MIP, the Indian wine sector, which is also growing, that itself will also get impacted because, these countries have excess wine production. They get a lot of state support, so they have a lot of price advantages, and that would work in their favor. The other thing which we had also spoken to the Commerce Ministry and even through our nodal ministry, that's the Ministry of Food Processing Industries, and they had, I think, also gone and given our concerns to the Ministry of Commerce, which were negotiating with the UK and the EU for the FTA. We had also said that there are a number of states like Maharashtra, Kerala, MP, West Bengal, Haryana, even Delhi for that matter, where all bottled in origin brands which are imports, whether wines or spirits, all of them have much cheaper duties, much cheaper levies. Now that still continues, so it's sort of a double whammy in some of these markets for Indian brands, both in spirits and in wines. So I
Well,
don't think it's
I have
it's a
to
great
say,
situation for
well, I
the
have to
Indian
say,
industry
Mr.
as far
Iyer,
as
that
spirits are concerned.
yeah, I have to say, Mr. Iyer, that consumers may not choose to agree with you on this one. You're probably going to have to sit this round out as far as the consumer is concerned, because it does, as you point out, open up the doors for the import of alcohol from the UK. And of course, it also gives India the opportunity to look for global markets as well. I mean, our spirits have been doing well. We've been winning some big competitions globally, so perhaps the time is right to make that pivot as well. But appreciate you joining us here on India Business Hour with your first reaction to the news that's just come in. So it's high spirits, as I pointed out, for the India-UK FTA, but not necessarily, as we just heard there, from the alcobev industry in India. That is their take. We will head into a break, but up next, nationwide civil defense security drill tomorrow. Such an exercise was last carried out before the Indo-Pak War of 1971. That and more when we return. India and the UK have sealed a free trade agreement. Joining me now is Rami Ranger, member of the House of Lords, with us. Thanks very much for joining us. It's a big day today after years of negotiations. A deal between India and the UK being inked. The free trade agreement is now done. Your first reaction on this?
My first reaction is I'd like to congratulate 1.4 billion of us scattered all over the world. A colony has joined you on an equal term to do business with you. So that means you are so special. Your Sanatani roots have brought more fruit for you that you are now an equal trade partner with the oldest democracy, with the largest democracy. Together, we share each other's values. We are both secular, democratic country with the rule of law at the heart of governance. Diversity in our country is accepted, respected, and protected. So therefore, there is no way you have to be scared of each other like you have to be with China. You have to watch your back and front when you do deal with China. But with India, this is a trade deal made in heaven. This is a good for the humanity, good for the world security, good for the poor people of the world, because India is a force for good. And the economy of India is growing at the rate of 7 to 8%. By plugging into Indian economy, Britain can move out of the sluggish growth. So therefore, it's a win-win situation for both the countries. We need the technology, they need the market. You can't get bigger market than India. The middle class is growing so rapidly, thanks to Prime Minister Modi. And we all aspire to buy the best in the world. So therefore, big market for Scotch whiskey. A lot of Punjabi like me will be celebrating. So therefore, it's a very, very good news that, the two countries sharing each other's value have joined hands. Indian defense industry is growing, whereas the British defense industry is contracting. Together, they can produce things in India like the JCB does and export to developing countries. JCB is now exporting to 90 countries and able to compete with the Chinese, who dump their product by manipulating the currency and keeping the labor forces at very disadvantage. So therefore, we are now going to give each other a strength which has never been given to anybody before, because you can have a small trade deal with small country with 20 million, 30 million people, but this is a mother of all trade deals with 1.2 billion of us. Therefore, you have to really celebrate, enjoy, and वो बोलते हैं ना अब दिल्ली दूर नहीं, so अब London दूर नहीं for Indian people. So therefore, we are going to have a huge economic boom in India, and a lot of industries will come up around the corner in your part of the world, and it is going to benefit the entire world. Believe you me, it is the best news. I've been waiting. I have been working behind the scenes with the Conservative government, making the case for India that it is a stable democracy. There are no coups. or upheaval like the one we see in many countries. So it's a very stable country. We have a philosophy, Vasudeva Kutumbakam. For us, the world is our village. For us, everybody is equal. For us, we have the positive values, and as a result, you can see the Sanatanis are running all the blue chip companies because we compete with the best in the world, because we have been taught to use merit, not to use religion to devalue our fellow citizens. And just like people want to do in Kashmir, but we want to rise above the rest on merit. And that is what is the good day for us, because we do not need any special favors. All we need is an equal opportunity. And as you can see, the Indian diaspora all over the world is shining for Mother India. I'm here, although I'm now a bit old, but in my youth, I won an unprecedented 5 consecutive Queen's Award for trade in international trade by competing with the best in Britain. The Prime Minister came personally to give me the 5th Queen's Award. He said, never been done. I said, we are Sanatanis. When we set our mind, ambition, then nobody can stop us. I mean, Modi ji has proved it.
Well,
I mean, look at that. From number 10th economy to number 4th economy, soon to be number 3. So therefore, you stay united. When we were not united, we received onslaught of invaders, one after the other. But now, under Prime Minister Modi ji, I appeal to you, remain united. You are number 4 economy, number 3rd defense.
Right.
Everybody wants to invest in India because of the positive attitude of the workers. They're highly motivated. They're very loyal. They really want to work and give the best to their children. So therefore, it is a great day for all over the world. We are not a small number. We are 1.4 billion.
No, we're not, Lord Ranger. It is a large market, as you point out, and you've called it the mother of all trade deals, and I would imagine that celebrations are probably underway. Is it Scotch whiskey time already?
Well, this time, although I drink whiskey, but I'm going to open a champagne just to have a few bubbles, bubble of celebration. So it is a good day for everybody, good day for humanity.
Well, we wish you the very best of luck with that, and we hope you enjoy your evening. But thanks very much for joining us on what has been a significant milestone that's been achieved in the bilateral relationship between India and the UK. Well, let's now talk about the market action. The sensex and the nifty ending with marginal losses, reversing gains from yesterday. Mid-caps and bank stocks saw a sharper sell-off, and the nifty bank index was down about 600 points. The Nifty Mid-Cap Index lost about 1,200 points. That's the stock market action for you. In the commodity market, oil prices rebounded after plunging to 4-year lows in the previous session as technical factors and bargain hunting spurred a recovery. The earlier decline followed an OPEC Plus decision to accelerate output increases, heightening concerns over a potential supply glut. Amidst weakening demand due to US tariffs, gold prices meanwhile surging to a 2-week high. This was driven by safe haven demand amidst Trump's tariffs and uncertainty around the Fed's upcoming meet. President Trump signed an executive order to boost pharma manufacturing in the US by reducing regulatory barriers. The announcement came as a bitter pill for stocks of Indian pharma companies. On an average, the top pharma companies export 40 to 50% of their medicines to the US. Speaking to reporters in the Oval Office, Trump also said he would make announcements in the coming weeks on the cost of drugs as well as tariffs on pharmaceuticals.
That's what it's all about, right? Very important. We're going to have a big announcement next week on some of this kind of thing, but more related to costs, the costs of medicines and drugs, because we're being ripped off, as you know, very badly, being ripped off compared to the rest of the world.
President, on the pharmaceutical side, have you made any determination on kind of what those tariff rates may look like and the timing of those?
I have. I'll announce it over the next 2 weeks.
And Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said many trading partners have approached the US with very good trade deals, and some could be done as early as this week. Speaking to CNBC on the sidelines of the Milken conference, Bessent reiterated that China tariffs are not sustainable. He also clarified that both sides have not been talking. Take a look.
I think we're very close to some deals. As President Trump said last night on Air Force One, maybe as early as this week. So when you think about uncertainty, uncertainty, a lot of it is generated by, I have asymmetric knowledge, so I'm not uncertain because I think it's going well. Other people don't know what I know. So
you'd have to share that with us then.
Well, I can say that I am highly confident that we have 18 important trading partners. We'll put China to the side. The 17 other partners, many of them have approached us with the very good trade proposals.
And back home, lenders to bankrupt Bhushan Steel likely to file a review petition after the Supreme Court scrapped JSW Steel's acquisition and ordered the liquidation. Banking Secretary Nagaraju said the government will finalise a decision soon. Here's former Bankruptcy Board Chairman MS Sahu on the top court's verdict.
This is absolutely legally sound, but completely economically hollow. This is an economic law. It must embed both economics and law. It has identified a set of people who have been responsible for this, but refrained from issuing any directions, remedial, preventive, penal action against any of them. But it has effectively penalized the company and the broader economy.
A nationwide mock drill exercise will be conducted tomorrow to strengthen civil defence preparedness. The drills will be conducted in 244 districts across states and union territories. This comes at a time when tensions between India and Pakistan are rising after the terror attack in Pahalgam. These are the first such drills to be carried out in over 50 years. Such an exercise was last carried out before the Indo-Pak War of 1971. The government's order to states makes no explicit reference to tensions with Pakistan. The primary object of such mock exercises is to strengthen defence preparedness among civilians. We'll head into a break, but don't go anywhere. A special discussion on the UK-India trade deal coming up. We've got big corporate leaders joining us. We're back in 2. The big story tonight, India and the UK have successfully sealed a free trade agreement after negotiations that lasted over 3 years. Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Keir Starmer have described the pact as a historic milestone. The FTA will include a double contribution convention. Now, essentially, that is designed to prevent individuals from being subject to double social security contributions when they work or live in both countries. And there is a time period that's been specified. It's for 3 years. So if you're working in the UK for 3 years, you will not need to pay social security contribution. Parikshit is standing by now. Parikshit, it's been a long time waited and a long time in the making as well, but a big step coming in for both nations, especially in this globally volatile world.
Well, the statement coming in from Keir Starmer, the UK Prime Minister, is the fact that this is the biggest deal that UK has done after exiting the European Union. Clearly a big significance for both nations. Let's just tell our viewers exactly what has happened, what we know so far. 90%, almost 99% of products exported from India to the UK will now enjoy a zero duty benefit. So they will be exported almost tax-free. But this means that this is possibly going to be a graded duty reduction over a period of time. We are yet to see the fine print, but what we learn from sources is that the deal is lowering tariffs on goods like whiskey, advanced manufacturing parts, food products like lamb, salmon, chocolate biscuits. It also agrees quotas on both sides for automotive imports. So we have to see the fine print on the automotive sector, for example. Is it a tariff reduction all across the board for both automotive components and vehicle OEMs? Or is it a graded reduction in tariffs only for a limited period of time, and that too for high-end cars? This was the ask from the industry. This was a proposal on the table. We have to wait and see what happens with that. But we do believe that there will be certain sectors such as textiles, such as furniture, sports, footwear, toys, clothing that are going to benefit from India. These are labor-intensive sectors. Also professional services, movement of professionals from India, such as those in the financial sector, the IT sector, yoga instructors, people who are working in the corporate sector and have been transferred to the UK for that matter, chefs, musicians. These are the kind of categories which are going to benefit as a result of the FTA, according to sources. What is also important is that a double contribution convention has been agreed upon, which means that Indian workers will no longer have to contribute to social security agreements, both in India and the UK. They will be exempted from making investments in social security agreements in the UK for a 3-year period. So net, it is a very important deal for India and UK. This also somehow sets a benchmark for our negotiations with the US and the European Union as well, because somewhere we will have to stick to this fine print and these contours in the trade negotiations that we have.
Yes, those, of course, negotiations are work in progress. This one has finally been done. Parikshit, many thanks for joining us. Joining us tonight with the first reaction, Sanjeev Puri, President of the Confederation of Indian Industry, Rajiv Bhamani, President-Designate of CII. Also with us, Amit Kalyani, Vice Chairman and MD of Bharat Forge, and Piruz Kambata, Chairman of the Rasna Group. Gentlemen, appreciate you joining us here on CNBC TV18 with your first reactions to the big deal that's been done. I just had Lord Ranger on the program, calling it the mother of all trade deals. Sanjeev Puri, let me start by asking you about the immediate implications this opens up for Indian industry. How does it change the playing field? And more importantly, there are, of course, concerns on what this also means in terms of goods coming in to the Indian market. We will have to wait to see what the duties will be as far as the fine print is concerned. But net, your first take.
Let me start by saying that it's indeed a very historical deal. And it's something that Indian industry looks forward to. And let me also congratulate our Prime Minister and the UK Prime Minister for this historic deal and their leadership in making this happen. And it's indeed a very comprehensive deal covering all the sectors of the economy. It will have profound impact on manufacturing, on the services piece, on agriculture. And it's a significant step forward, into the aspiration of the Indian industry to integrate with global value chains. And as we know, a lot of global trade is in value chains. So we do see great opportunity for MSMEs, apparel, footwear, toys, gems, jewelry, some labor-intensive sectors, and also some engineering sectors. Plenty of opportunities there. And I think the services sectors become competitive. I think it enhances mobility. And therefore, we expect the services economy to get another boost. And this is a strong point for India. India is a services powerhouse. I think that's another positive.
Yeah.
And of course, I think this is also going to lead to more investments on either side. If you look at data today, India is a very significant investor into UK. And similarly, UK is, accounts for 5% or so of the FDI into India. So they're already significant. I think this is going to enhance collaboration. This is going to open up more opportunities. It's going to open, I think, greater opportunities for what the world needs also in terms of resilient supply chains. So we should see greater investments happening and therefore a lot more innovation, job creation, and strengthening of the competitiveness of the two economies. So I think it's certainly very welcome, and once again congratulate everybody for this historic agreement. And to the point that you said is that about goods coming in, I think Indian industry is competitive. Indian industry is competitive, makes world-class products, and therefore I only see this as an opportunity for a wider market access and therefore growth and investment and therefore jobs, rather than seek this more as a threat.
Right. Rajiv Bhamani, let me bring you into the conversation as well. We're talking about what this deal potentially means for Indian industry, both as far as the manufacturing side of the story is concerned and, of course, services. If I were to ask you to put down your bucket list of immediate, medium and long term, what does this change?
So, Shireen, firstly, I think we must compliment the government and especially the Commerce Minister and his team, because they worked very hard to get this together. They also spent a lot of time, honestly, to engage with different stakeholders before they went out and for the negotiations. So I think there was very extensive engagement with industry and various sections of people who would be potentially impacted by this. So to answer your question, Shireen, I think what's the most important thing, apart from tactical things, I think what is most important, I think this is probably the widest signal that India has made, that there is an acceleration, given what the global changes are. There's an acceleration in the thought process, in the way India is now looking at bilateral treaties. And I think UK is the sixth largest economy, India is the fifth largest economy. So it's a trade deal between two of the most significant economies in the world. And I think we all know that there is the mother of all trade deals will be with the US, and then you have EU, which is equally significant. So it's a very strong signal of the confidence of the government to do this, of the confidence of industry to support this. And therefore, and as Sanjeev rightly stated, it presents a very expanded market opportunity to Indian industry. And I think today, Indian industry, whether it's manufacturing and services, and honestly, with most of the countries, we have a positive trade balance. So if you look at goods and services, total trade between India and UK, it's roughly about $50 billion. And India has roughly a trade surplus and trade and services surplus of close to $9 billion. So we're in a good position. I think this should hopefully accelerate that even more going forward in areas of our strength. I think the immediate beneficiaries, one is, as you rightly said, the double contribution agreement. I believe it's for 3 years. So we still haven't seen the details of that, but yeah, it's for 3 years. And so I think that obviously reduces the cost significantly straight up. And therefore makes mobility much more easier. And again, opening various mobility parameters will make it much more easier. The second is labor-intensive industries. In some products, goods and products, Bangladesh, Pakistan, for example, in various categories of textiles, have zero duty to UK. India has to pay a 12% customs duty. So that goes down to almost, if that goes down to 0% against, we haven't seen the details of that. I think that in itself...
That's the expectation, that's the assumption that we're working with as well, that it will.
Yeah, I mean, 90%, if they've impacted 90% of the goods, and I think out of that, I believe 80-85% would be phased to 0% over a period of next 10 years. So I think that's all labor-intensive manufacturing, I think, presents a great, this opens one more market for them. For services sector, obviously, it's more positive because there is greater mobility. Investments are always a big deal between India and UK. I think we are both very large investment partners with each other. I think this will also give a greater fillip to that because it's a wider signal. Whilst I don't think the bilateral investment treaty is being signed, but it's a wider signal to...
Yeah, I was just going to ask you that because there's no announcement as far as the bilateral investment treaty is concerned. I would imagine that might perhaps come in another installment. But, what do you make of that?
Yeah, I think so. I think there must have been, hard to say. I think that it was being discussed along with the overall trade agreement, but obviously bilateral investment treaty is a more complex matter, and how do you deal with historical issues, current issues, courts, arbitration, and everything else. So it's far more complex piece of document. And I think whatever India signs with you then becomes the template for rest of the world. So I think one has to be cautious, but I do hope at some stage India signs because I think that will encourage and create greater investment opportunities between both the countries and various geographies. So I would say that is there. For me, the most important thing, Shireen, in this, as I said earlier, is the signaling. And I think India just starting greater, much wider market access, especially our manufacturing costs are getting more competitive. There's much more labor-intensive manufacturing. There was a lot of deliberations, even on auto. One doesn't know the duty and everything else. But the way the whole thing was configured it was not only the tariff, but tariff was one piece of it, sliding tariff, what is the value addition norms, because they are very critical, and the fourth is quotas. So you have all four of them play out in some form of fashion before India takes. So it's been very thought through, very deliberate. and it has to be a win-win. Both sides have to benefit from it. So it has to be a win-win situation.
Absolutely. Well, that's the statement coming in from the UK as well, that in doing this deal, they have still managed to protect their interests, whether it's consumer interests, labour rights, the NHS and so on and so forth. That's the commentary that's coming in from the UK. But Amit Kalyani, thanks very much for joining us, to take forward what we heard there from Sanjeev Puri and Rajiv Memani. What does this mean for the manufacturing sector in general, but specifically for auto, for defence, for instance, as well?
Yeah, Shireen, I'd also like to congratulate the government, the Prime Minister, our Commerce Minister, Finance Minister for taking the leadership in making this happen. As both Mr. Memani and Mr. Puri mentioned, there was a consultative process with industry to make sure that, the voices of the industry are heard, both for the tariff-related issues and the non-tariff barriers that we face in dealing with other countries. And quite frankly, I think this is a very synergistic deal because, as the UK has, the reduction of manufacturing as a percentage of their GDP, but a lot of good technology still being developed in the technology centers, universities, etc. I think the synergy between both countries, to do R&D up to TRL level 3 and 4 over there, and then take it forward with application engineering in India, and use our vast markets, supply chain capabilities, and manufacturing capability to become a global producer of high technology products and supply them worldwide, including back to the UK, and continue that virtuous cycle of development and engineering is a great opportunity. You spoke about automotive. India is an Indian company is the largest automotive manufacturer in the UK. And I think the supply chain to that coming from India is going to be a big, fillip and a big boost going forward in keeping them profitable and competitive. And I think the defense industry will get a huge opportunity to supply into UK and Europe, and also take advantage of capabilities in the UK to partner with more and more UK companies in servicing both the UK and Indian requirements through mutually beneficial relationships.
Well, yes, Tata Motors, as you point out, and JLR, big players in the auto space. But let me bring Piruz Kambata into the conversation as well. Agriculture has always been one of those hot-button sensitive issues, but both sides seem to have reached an agreement, even on the sensitive issues, including, of course, Scotch. But Piruz Kambata, what does this mean?
I think Indian Scotch is very tasty, because I was lucky. I was part of the Indian delegation with my colleagues in last week, same time. And probably same time, I was shaking my hands with both the trade ministers, and they were very warm. So I could feel that there is something happening. And I think they exchanged a lot of things, including some good beverages. So I'm sure something was going good to happen, but I never expected in 1 week. So I think we are lucky. And I should compliment the government. I should also compliment the trade bodies, because a lot of trade bodies have been involved in this. And I think it is a win-win, because, see, our earlier treaties which we had signed in the past were with countries where we didn't have the synergies correct. Here our synergies are correct. And I think this is a very auspicious time. I'll use the word. And like a lot of people have said, this trade thing has become very auspicious for us, because in this trade war game, India is definitely going to gain. We will become the alternative to some countries which are not being looked for manufacturing. And for us, free trade agreements are very important for this growth. And I am very sure that people will shift. International big players will shift their manufacturing to India. And I can see that happening in merchandise. I can see that happening in food. Now, for example, let us take in food. You mentioned biscuits. So just to take an example, we are very competitive in making biscuits. Now, imagine if the tax goes down to almost zero, we can make all those good UK cookies, all the shortbreads and all those nice cookies can come from India there. And similarly, I think in a host of things, and the good thing is the government has distinguished between agriculture and processed foods. Processed foods is something where they have allowed. In some marine issues also allowed. Even specialty dairies they have allowed. Of course, they have protected basic agriculture, I think, which is pretty fair. But I think more impetus has to be placed not on exports of the wheat and rice, if you ask me, but on biryanis of the world. The RT, what I call ready to cook, ready to eat, honestly. So why should we be exporting the rice when we can make biryani and export, when we can make the frozen parathas and export? So I think The value-added food products is where I think the game should be, and I think this treaty does recognize that. Secondly, I think please see that this becomes a template. We are now negotiating treaties with Europe also, with United States also. The USA treaty is the big thing in the room. I think this will be a template for those treaties also, and this will become a competition. कि India UK sign हो गया, चलो हम भी जल्दी कर लेते हैं. So I think I will now wish the UK, USA, and Europe also happens, because then this whole manufacturing shift will be much bigger and faster to India.
Yeah.
So this is the way I'm looking.
Yes.
One thing I would like to just
no,
say.
absolutely. Yeah.
That is the
Go ahead,
non-tariff barrier.
Firoz.
And that is the, I think Amit did mention about it. Important thing in the treaties are how the non-tariff barriers are addressed. And my understanding is that both countries have resolved that the non-tariff areas will really be addressed. My only hope is, because with food, I don't want this to happen, that at one end we have custom duty which is zero, but at other, because of some MRL or some issue, exports are not allowed, or something in milk or something that. So I definitely wish that those don't come as the way for increasing our export. That's all what I was saying.
Right. No, absolutely. And of course, we will have to wait for the fine print to be able to address some of those issues. But Sanjeev, going back to, I think, the points that each one of you is making, that while this is a significant deal in itself, the larger messaging that India seems to be sending out is we're not in a protectionist mindset at this point in time. We want to speed up. We want to accelerate bilateral deals and make good the opportunity that this global reset has opened up. Sanjeev Puri, would you agree?
Absolutely, Shireen. I think this is a very strong message. And it also, I think, is a strong message from India. And as Rajiv said, there were wide-ranging consultations. So what is embedded in that is the confidence of the Indian industry and the keenness of Indian industry to expand the market, compete globally, integrate into global value chains. If you look at the agreement with UK itself and the ambition there, today the trade between bilateral trade is about 22 billion. What is being, the target by 2030 is 100 billion. That's about a 4.5x of what it is today. So it's a fairly ambitious target. But I think with a comprehensive trade agreement such as this, I'm sure this is more than possible. And given the size of the two economies, I'm more than certain that this value of trade can be definitely achieved. And it's going to open up a lot more opportunities on both the sides. It's going to, help us collaborate and develop newer value chains, leveraging strengths on either side. Right? There could be a lot of MSMEs that can benefit from India, particularly plugging into, components or products which have, where UK may be the fulcrum of a global value chain, whether it's an auto, and Amit spoke about auto, it could be in aerospace, it could be in other engineering goods. So it does open up lots of opportunities. And more importantly, I do see greater amount of, collaboration, greater amount of companies coming together to invest, leveraging strengths, and therefore really raising the quotient on innovation, raising the quotient on, the R&D that's going to happen. There are learnings in the UK. UK is fairly deep into R&D, and there's a lot of capacity in India also for research and development. I think it'll open up a lot more opportunities over the medium term. So it's a very, very, very comprehensive deal. In fact, it talks about, as far as access is concerned, 99% of the products. So it's very welcome, and I think Indian industry is really keenly looking forward to it. Not only this, but the subsequent ones. So these will be the real ones where we will, really benefit from synergies and provide greater opportunity for Indian industry to invest, create jobs, and so on and so forth.
So Rajiv Bhimani, let me end by asking you, you said the mother of all deals is still expected. In light of how quickly we've seen a turnaround on this one, what's the expectation now on the India-US dialogue and talks that are currently underway?
I have no idea, Shri. I think all I know is that the government is really engaging with industry in a very extensive way. I think they've been very transparent in sharing, in both giving assurance to industry that they will not do anything without appropriate consultation, and also very transparently laying out what the pros and cons of various things are. So I feel that there is and as you know, media has covered it. I think there have been various rounds of conversation. There was something that also happened last week, some rounds of discussion. So I'm sure that there are various rounds of discussions that are happening. I also think that there is a lot of complementarity in the relationship between India and UK, between India and EU, and between India and US. So hopefully there are not too many issues which will be. So I think if both sides are reasonable in their expectations, in typically these trade deals, things that are very controversial or impact huge number of people without adequate benefit, generally people set them aside. And you focus on the substantive issues if you want a trade deal to be done. 80-90% of the issues you cover, and 10-15% that are very controversial, you try and set them aside. I'm sure they've now done the UK thing, they've done other countries as well. So they're following the same template of not touching on those things which are very controversial, but focusing on the substantive issues that comprise the bulk of the trade. And I think it's a great opportunity for industry, especially as manufacturing is taking on in India, as India is getting plugged into this, global value chains. These present tremendous opportunities, and I'm honestly I'm very hopeful. I don't know the details, but I'm very hopeful that
Rajiv, we're getting so many questions on our social media handles. Consumers asking what's going to get cheaper. In fact, somebody just writing in to me saying, are UK-made bikes also going to get cheaper in India? And I mean, we're still waiting for the fine print, but I would safely say yes. Right, Rajiv?
I have no idea, because they will have a quota as well. I'm sure that when the duty reduction on auto industry happens, there will also be. It'll be gradual. I don't think it'll be anything that will happen in much of a hurry.
Absolutely.
There will be a quota, and definitely yes. I think some things for consumers, definitely we always forget the consumers in this. Consumers will definitely benefit, especially some who have finer tastes in life. So they will definitely benefit.
No, I had the representative of the Alcohol Association complaining about how this is bad news as far as the Indian spirits business is concerned, but I had to tell him that he'll have to sit this one out because the consumers are going to vote with both hands on this one. But gentlemen, we will of course bring all of you back as we pore over the fine print to really understand the seriousness of the decision that's been taken and the impact and implications of the deal that's been agreed on between India and the UK. But we truly appreciate you joining us here this evening with your first read of what has been a significant deal between two nations that have been negotiating for over 3 years. Sanjeev Puri, Rajiv Memani, Amit Kalyani and Piroz Kambata, many thanks for joining us on this special edition of India Business Hour. We're going to take a break. There's a lot more coming up. Don't go anywhere. We're back in a moment.